Salve discipuli, hodie spectamus lectoram nōnan capitis noem. Demonstratives and special IUS adjectives. Hodie discemus primum vocabula capitis noem, dende grammaticam. Demonstrative pronouns and adjectives, those are the this, that, and those kind of words. That is hic, ille, and iste. So hic for this, ille for that, and iste for that over there. And then special IUS adjectives. In other words, two-on-two adjectives that have the IUS ending in the genitive singular, because we'll see. Primum discemus nomina vocabulorum capitis noem. In hoc capite sunt tria nomina: locus, morbus, studium. Primum nomen: locus, loci. In religione Christiana et aliis religionibus post mortem locus bonus, locusque malus sunt. Quid significat locus? Post mortem locus bonus, locusque malus sunt. Caelum vel infernus. Proximum nomen: morbus, morbi. Pestis nigra erat morbus terribilis in Europa mediaevali. Hodie tamen remedia hunc morbum curare possunt. Quid significat morbus? Ultimum nomen: studium studii. Omnes aequales sunt, et creator illis iura inalienabilia lat, et inter haec sunt vita et libertas studiumque laetitiae. Quid significat studium? Bene, nunc discemus pronomina adjectivaque demonstrativa vocabulorum capitis noem. Hic, ille, iste. Pronomina adjectivaque demonstrativa. Primum pronomen: hic, haec, hoc. Omnes aequales sunt, et creator illis iura inalienabilia dat, et inter haec sunt vita et libertas studiumque laetitia. Ille, illa, illud. Omnes aequales sunt, et creator illis iura inalienabilia dat, et inter haec sunt vita et libertas studiumque laetitiae. Iste, ista, istud. Cicero Catilinam demonstrat, et dicit: iste homo civitatem superare audet. Nunc discemus ius adjectiva ad vocabula capitis noem. Sunt noem adjectiva: alius, alter, neuter, nullus, solus, totus, ullus, unus, uter. Primum adjectivum: alius, alia, aliud. In religione Christiana et aliis religionibus post mortem locus bonus, locusque malus sunt. Quid significat alius? Proximum nomen: alter, altera, alterum. Magister Hyde est alter ego doctoris Jekyll. Quid significat alter? Proximum adjectivum: neuter, neutra, neutrum. In secundo bello mondiale, confederatio Helvetica, neutrum partem euabat, et bellum numquam gerebat. Quid significat adjectivum? Proximum adjectivum. Nullus, nulla, nullum. Nullam satisfactionem habere passum. Canunt McJagger et saxa volentia. Quid significat nullus? Proximum adjectivum. Solus, sola, solum. Sola fide salvari poteritis, dicunt Lutherani. Fide et bonis operibus, dicunt Catholici. Quid significat solus? Proximum adjectivum. Totus, tota, totum. Totam ne pizzam devoravisti? Multum famen habebam. Quid significat totus? Proximum adjectivum. Ullus, ulla, ullum. Ullas ne reginas habes? Nullas habeo. Piscare igitur. Quid significat ullus? Proximum adjectivum. Unus, una, unum. E pluribus, unum. Quid significat unus? Proximum adjectivum. Uter, utra, utrum. Utrum praeferitis. Felem cum capillis longis, aut brevibus. Quid significat uter? Ecce feles cum capillis longis? Ecce feles cum capillis brevibus? Utrum praeferitis. Nunc discemus alias partes loquendi vocabulorum capitis novem. Una conjunctio enim, una praepositio in, unum adverbium nimis. Enim. Ad camuladonum venire non debemus. Illud enim est locus ridiculus. Praepositio in. In plus casum accusativum. Si in sepulchretum elephantorum venies, magno in periculo eris. Mufasa monet. Adverbium nimis. Nihil nimis. Graeci antiqui multa cum sapientia monebant. Okay, so in this chapter, we will learn demonstrative pronouns / adjectives as well as the IUS adjectives. So demonstrative pronouns are the words for this, that, those, these, etc. In other words, they are adjectives that demonstrate, that point out things, right? Very useful words. So Latin has three, well, more than three, but these are the ones that we'll deal with in this chapter. Okay, and they have kind of overlapping meanings. Okay, but they're important and they're used a lot. So the first one is hic, haec, hoc. Okay, hic, haec, hoc is for this and these. So in other words, you're pointing to something nearby. Okay, illa, illud. Okay, means that or those. Okay, things that might be further away or something other than these. Let's say. Ista, istud is sort of a wild card. It usually translates also as this, as that, and those, though it has more the sense of that thing here or that thing there. It's almost more of like you're pointing it out. or it almost has sort of almost a sense of contempt. Oh, that guy there, right? Used in speeches and stuff. Okay, but you can just go with this, that, and another way of saying that. That's fine. Okay, so here is how all three of them are in the nominative. Okay, in the singular. Okay, and so you'll see that there's a bit of irregularity here, though. The feminine has the A's, which helps. Once you get into the genitive, things get a little weird, but at least there's consistency. And also, you're going to see this type of ending in other pronouns, as well as the IUS adjectives that we'll get to in a moment. Okay, so the genitive, singular, is this ends in IUS for all of them. So huius, 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 okay, means of this, regardless of gender. Okay, so all of these are the same for regardless of gender. So even though you're learning some new forms, at least there isn't a different one for each gender in the genitive. Okay. And then in the dative, singular, again, it's the same for each word for the masculine, feminine, neuter. Okay, so it's huic, huic, huic. So to this, do this. Ili, ili, ili. To that, isti, 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 etc. Okay. You'll notice here that that long I is also the dative singular for third declension noun. So at least it's getting it from somewhere. Then when we get into the accusative, things look a bit more like 2-1-2 adjectives, right? So hunk, honk, hawk, okay, for this in the accusative. Of course, you'll notice following the neuter rule that it'll be the same as the nominative, okay? It looks a little more regular in the for illa, illa, illud, with and there, though, and again, following the neuter rule, and the same with this. Okay, so there's some familiar endings here, but you can see there's sort of a mix of first, second, and third declension endings here in the places you would expect. Okay, and then in the ablative, we basically have kind of the 2-1-2 vowels that you have in the ablative with the long mark. So hok, hak, hok, ilo, illa, ilo, isto, ista, isto. Okay, so these will be a little cumbersome, but pay attention to kind of the newest type of forms, but also note how they resemble the things you already know. Okay, how do they look in the plural? Well, thankfully, in the plural, they're a bit more regular, and they use mostly sets of endings that we're already familiar with, 2-1-2 endings for the most part. Okay, so as you see here, with the exception of kind of hike in the neuter plural for these things, right? Otherwise, we have familiar 2-1-2 endings in the plural. Look in the genitive plural; those are definitely familiar endings, as well as the dative, accusative, and ablative. And of course, demonstrative pronouns and adjectives don't have a vocative, so that's another form you don't have to know. Now, why am I calling these both demonstrative pronouns and adjectives? Well, they can work on their own. Okay, so for instance, hike. Okay, this is neuter plural for the word for this, so this can mean these things, these, or I could pair this with, say, hike dona to mean these gifts. So these can be paired with a noun, therefore being a demonstrative adjective, but they can function on their own as pronouns. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward when you see them. Okay. Okay, the last thing we'll talk about is special IUS adjectives. In other words, these are 2-1-2 adjectives that behave a little differently than regular 2-1-2 adjectives. And the way they behave differently is in their genitive and dative singular form. Okay, and so we're going to use nolus as an example of an IUS adjective to show, and I'm going to decline that paired with a masculine, feminine, and neuter noun to show you what's up. Okay, So nullus rex, no king. Nulla regina, no queen. Nullum regnum, no kingdom. Okay? You'll see here, with the exception of the genitive and the dative singular, they will decline like 2 and 2 adjectives, right? Decline in the second masculine with a masculine noun, in the first feminine with a feminine noun, and in the second neuter with a neuter noun. Okay. The difference is that in the genitive singular, it ends in ius rather than a long I. Okay, and that's the case regardless of gender. And it'll end in a long I instead of a long O, or an AE or whatever, in the dative singular, regardless of gender. Okay, so they're a bit funny, but at least it isn't that different from, say, the demonstratives that we just learned. They follow a similar pattern, hence we're introducing them in the same chapter. And as we see here, 2 and 2 adjectives decline the exact same way as, IUS adjectives decline in the same way as 2 and 2 adjectives in the plural. There's no difference. So if you know your plural endings for the first and second declension, masculine, feminine, neuter, then these behave no different. Okay, so we would say nulli reges, nullae reginae, nulla regna, etc. Okay. Now, all of the IUS adjectives were introduced as vocab in this chapter. There aren't any more than what was already introduced in this chapter, and these are them once again. Okay. And there's a mnemonic that Wheelock's introduces to help you memorize which adjectives are 2 and 2 adjectives. And these are adjectives that are fairly common in Latin, as these words would be in any language. Okay, so that's one reason they're more irregular. So we have unus nauta, meaning one sailor. Okay, so we have unus una unum, meaning one. We have nullus nulla nullum, meaning no or none. Ullus ulla ullum, meaning any. Solus sola solum, meaning alone or lone or only. Neuter neutra neutrum, meaning neither. Alius alia alium, meaning other. Uter utra utrum, meaning either. Totus tota totum, meaning complete or total or the whole. And then alter altera alterum, which means one of two. Okay? And that's it. And that's it for this chapter. So this is mainly focusing on the demonstratives and the IUS adjectives, so definitely pay attention to how they're formed, because you'll be asked to decline them on future quizzes. Okay? Walete discipuli.